some reason I'm getting technical difficulties. It's saying having trouble connecting. So let me try again.
Okay.
Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Joel, today's topic is apropos, and I say that for a number of reasons, not the least of which is I ignored some very definite signs from the universe over the weekend. And for a short period of time, it cost me dearly.
Yes. Can't wait to hear this.
Right? So as you know, and as I think many of our listeners know, I have for many years had a business. It was the business that actually crashed in 2008, but I still have the remnants of it. It's a business hosting and originally it was also designing, although I don't do that anymore, websites. I have my own web server and so forth. And I have this project that you know about and listeners know about that I'm working on where I'm trying to hook up people who want help with their vibration with positivity partners. So I have to build a web presence that goes along with that. And some of it's being built by the platform that I'm using for doing the scheduling, but some of it I have to do myself. So I was working on that and I committed a faux pas that you don't do in my business. One of the things that you do when you own your own server, when you run your own server, is you make sure that you don't touch certain things. And if you do touch them, you touch them very carefully, because you can bring the whole show to a screeching halt if you don't. Guess what I did over the weekend?
You touched something.
I brought the whole show to a screeching halt over the weekend.
Wow. Okay.
And it's perfect for our topic because there were signs all along the way saying, don't do that, don't do that. And I ignored every single one of them. And for about a 3.5 hour period, I lived 3.5 hours of living hell because I have customers, who rely on the websites and so forth. And it's not just websites, it's also email services. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on with it. And it was all down. It was all unavailable. The LOA Today site was down. Everything was down. Everything was completely gone. And I knew that what might be involved in fixing it could be costly, time consuming. It could be days, depending on how it all played out. I mean, that would be a worst case scenario, but that was a possibility. So I did the only thing I could do. Well, I did two things. First, I asked for help, which is always a good thing to do.
It's true. Yes.
So I asked the people who I host the server with for help. And of course, it was a Sunday night, so nobody's paying any attention on a Sunday night. And I knew there was a very good chance I wasn't going to hear anything from them until the next morning. And I thought, oh, God, no, I can't do that because it'll be a Monday morning. That's when all my clients are going to be trying to connect to do their stuff and they won't be able to connect. And then I'm going to get the phone calls. I started very quickly going down that road. I said, well, stop. Don't go there. You know where that one goes. Don't go down that road. So I did my thing that we talk about. We talk about a variety of different ways, but in my case, I sat down, I got myself into a meditative state. I did the deep breathing, went through the chakras. I did all the kind of stuff that you do in order to get yourself into that nice aligned state. And then in that state, I put out an intention such as I have not put out in years, saying, send a tech now to put the server up.
Wow.
And 3.5 hours later, it was back up.
Nice.
So, it wasn't, now that was 3.5 hours from hell because, everything, it felt like my whole house was falling apart. But the reason I bring the story up, like I said, is because I had warnings all along the way. I mean, literally the way the software is written, even for the server administrator, when you're doing stuff on the server and you're doing stuff you shouldn't be doing, it says, don't do this. This has a big risk attached to it. And I did it anyway.
Well, that clearly is ignoring a sign, a literal sign.
It really is. Blindly. And I can't even explain to you why I did it.
Yeah.
I can't. I actually sat down and said, "Why did I do that? I knew better," and I don't have an answer.
Wow. Wow.
So it goes to show any of us can ignore signs. The question is, can we learn from the fact that we didn't pay any attention to the signs?
Well, that is a good question. I mean, I don't know if we actually, always learn. It clearly, I know people that literally have manifested exactly what they're asking for, but they don't see it right in front of them.
Yeah.
I see that all the time. The idea that, I want this and this and this. And it's like, okay, can I point out that you have this and this and this exactly as you said, but you're just not seeing it,
Mm-hmm.
and it could go either direction. It could be, not doing something like you're talking about in your situation. I shouldn't have done that. The signs were clear. I shouldn't have done it. Or the other side of it is, I really have what I want, and it's right there, and I didn't see it the entire time. I missed it.
Yes,
so
common.
yeah. So I have a really good friend. She lives in South Carolina, and she's not listening. So, and I'm not going to mention her name, but anyway, so she has been, she was divorced probably 5 or 6 years ago. She's 40 now. Very smart, professional, and we're just good friends. And she's been looking for a life partner, a man for her. She wants a companion that's equally smart, and that all this. She has this list of people list of qualities she's looking for in a person. Okay. And so, we check in every now and then. We used to work together years ago, and so she updated me. And then along the way, she's mentioned this guy named Scott, and Scott's so funny. He's blah blah blah, and he's great. And he taught my son how to hit the other day, and and then about 15 minutes later, she's saying, "I just can't find anybody." And and so I'm hearing this. I said, "Look, I'm going to ask the dumbest question maybe of our friendship." I said, "But the last several times we spoke, you're talking about this Scott guy," and he goes, "What about Scott?" She goes, "Oh, we're just friends." I said, "But have you thought beyond that? You're just dismissing this?" And she said, "Well, I mean, I don't think we blah 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 and all these things." And I said, "Have you actually just asked Scott if is there any?" And she goes, "Well, no, because it just felt awkward, and I don't think that we're a great match." I said, "He literally he's very smart. He in the same profession she is in, very well known. His wife passed away several years ago. His kids are grown. I mean, it's literally right there." And so finally she's like, "Well, I've never really thought about that much." I said, "But what if you've been manifesting hard for this, and this guy's been around for 2 years? Is that telling you something?" And I said, "There's going to be a point." And I said, "And maybe Scott's just that shy guy that doesn't know, maybe he's thinking it." I said, the conversation needs to happen."
Yeah.
So anyway, so she decided, she said, "Okay, it's going to be awkward, but the next time I'll talk to him." And so she said, "My friend Joel," I mentioned Joel. She was talking to Scott. So, yeah, Joel sounds like a great guy. And she said, "We've never really talked about this, but I've been looking for, a relationship for a long, long time." And Joel asked the question, "What about this Scott guy?" And he said, she said he sort of turned red, and he goes, "Yeah, what about me?" And, and she's like, "Well, I never really thought about that because we've never," and he goes, "Well, I have thought about it, but I just didn't think it was and so bottom line is they started discussing it, and he's very interested. She's very interested. And she realized, she's like, he just checks every single box. And her statement was, he's literally been right in front of me for the last 2 years.
Right.
And now Scott needs to step up his game if that's going on for 2 years.
This is true.
Yeah, Scott,
there are two sides to the story.
Yeah. I'm not blaming her at all, but just that simple, let me look at it. So one of the things I always encourage people to do is look at what's here, because there's when I was growing up, this is a true story. We had a lake house, and it's on a lake called Lake Susan in Florida. It's a small lake. And so we'd get in our boat and we'd go through a canal and go to this bigger lake. It's called Lake Louisa. And so, really nice lake, big one. And so we'd go fish in Lake Louisa. Well, we got back to our boat. I mean, back to our little lake, and we were going to. We have a nice dock and all this. So this guy's out there fishing, and we're talking. He caught 2 or 3 really nice bass that day. And we were just talking about stuff, and he goes, yeah, I have a house on Lake Louisa, and I'd like to come over here and fish. And it's like we literally are going. The fish he was catching were at our dock.
Right.
This is our dock, and he caught a 5-pound bass and a 7-pound bass and like a 3-pound bass at our dock, fishing from his boat. We went over to his place and didn't have much luck. And I said, Dad, we do this every time. Why aren't we fishing here? And it's the idea that it's always better somewhere else. Sometimes you fish fail to see what is in front of you. And so when, being careful to manifestation is identifying what you want, tuning into all of that. But half the battle is understanding when it arrives. You've got to be able to see it when it shows up, ignoring the signs that are in front of you. Because if my friend and Scott didn't talk, eventually Scott's going to quit being that available, and they're going to move on. I expect these two will probably end up together, but they would have missed that. It's just a lot of times you think something, but you never bother to ask. You never look. You never take advantage of what's right there.
Yeah. And in situations like that, we don't dare.
No.
I mean, I don't know what was going on in Scott's mind that was holding him back, but that was certainly going to be part of it. He didn't dare do it.
No. And actually Scott told her, she asked that question, and Scott said, look, I hadn't dated, he said, he met his wife in college. They fell in love. He isn't a big dater. He hasn't dated a lot. Right. So when she passed away, he said, I really wasn't looking for anyone. And he said, I don't even know how to do that. I don't even know what to do. And he said, but we got so close that I was worried that if I said it, I would lose what we have, and I'd rather not have it so we can keep at least what we have.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. And so anyway, Scott, I don't know how that turns out.
No,
but
we never do.
Yeah, but that at least being aware that she effectively attracted a long time ago what she's been seeking, and her and failing to see it. Scott's the guy that. Her kid needed to be picked up from school, and she's in a meeting she can't leave. Scott goes and gets the kid. He's just there.
And the fact that we don't know how that's going to play out, I think, is an even more important piece, because that piece is about why we risk it anyway.
Yes. I mean, that's a great point.
We don't know what's going to be the result. I mean, maybe she has the conversation with him, it starts to lead to something, and then it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But you'll never find that out unless you do it, unless you actually follow that sign. And so I think that's part of the point is we want to pay attention to those signs, not because we know how it's going to turn out, but because we want to find out how it's going to turn out.
Well, right. And there's a safety, believe it or not, we've talked about this in some other form or fashion, sort of the homeostasis of their relationship at this point Scott was scared of losing what they had, because she said, we're best friends. And, they go out to eat. I mean, it's just like, it's this really important relationship. So to him, the risk of losing what they had, in his mind, he was just with no discussion. He said, if I'd have brought it up and you would have just said, no, I'm not interested that way, it would have been awkward, and we probably would have just sort of filtered apart. Mm-hmm. And that's a possibility. But you have to, when you're seeking, you have to allow, you have to look, you have to accept the signs. And like you're talking about the signs the other way, like, why do you keep doing the same thing, seeing the same signs? I know a lot of my friends that have been in multiple relationships and marriages, they end up dating the same woman every single time, that she just has a different name.
Exactly.
A lot of them look alike. They have the same personality. They end up having the same problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I see that a lot.
I'm sure you do, especially, well, you probably saw it even more when you were a therapist. You probably still see it as a life coach.
Oh,
but
yeah.
You saw it a whole lot more as a therapist, because that's why you go to therapy in the first place.
Well, yeah, I mainly to watch, have some good friends that years and years ago. I had a friend when I was living in Florida, and I was just starting my career, and he was in recovery from gambling as well. And so he he was dating this woman who had borderline personality disorder, and she would get really angry at him and would kick him out of the house and said, if you don't leave, I'm going to call the police and say you beat me up. And he would leave and she'd call crying. He'd go back. Well, she repeated that cycle 15 times and he kept going back. And then finally he broke up with her. She had blonde hair, not naturally, but blonde hair. And she had a look to her. She was shorter, blonde hair. She had a certain look to her.
Sure.
So he was proud to inform me I started dating another woman. And so he brought her by the house and she walked in and I literally laughed. I'm like, I didn't tell him why. I was like, oh, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah, right.
And, just that. And so when she stepped out for a moment ago, this is identical to the last. I mean, she looks the same look, the same mannerism. And shockingly, within 2 months, the same outcome.
Stunning.
Yeah. And I go, what are you attracting here with this? What? And he goes, but she didn't seem, I said, she seems exactly like the other one. And just being able to look for that, and I don't mean this in any light manner, but women that have been physically abused tend to attract more men that have physically abused them. It's like, their patterns in that are very, and that's, everybody that's been in psychology knows, most women are not physically abused. Most are not. But the ones that are tend to be abused multiple times by multiple men over the course of their lifetime.
Right. Yeah. Which is a shocking thing, but it's sort of the ultra negative side of what we're talking about.
Yes.
Because the thing about signs from the universe is it isn't just ignoring the signs. It's also ignoring what the signs are telling you.
Yes.
I mean, one way to look at a nice, easy analogy is a highway analogy, right? You're driving down the highway and the signs are giving you directions as you're going along.
Right.
And if you choose to ignore the sign that says this is your exit, this is where you get off in order to go where you want to go, well, okay, you ignored the sign. But you also ignored what the sign was telling you.
Yes.
I mean, it isn't just that you ignored the sign. That's what I did with the server over the weekend. I didn't just ignore what the server was telling me. I was ignoring it over and over again in all the different ways that it was trying to tell me, don't do this. This is a bad idea. This is a really, really bad idea. And what's more, it's an unnecessary idea. And I ignored the message.
Well, we see that a lot. I know as a parent, I'm very much about allowing my kids to sort of, this is their journey, but I do give commentary along the way. Like, I'm going to do that. And I will be like, well, I think this is a really bad idea. And I'll tell you why. Here's what potentially could happen. But I really want you to make it your decision, whatever. And inevitably, and some of them are real obvious bad decisions, but yet that's the way most people learn.
Yeah.
And Justin's even come up to me and said, yeah, worked out exactly like you said it was going to work out. And I said, but you weren't going to listen to me, but you needed to find out for yourself. I'm good. I was the same way. Not mad about that.
Yeah. Well, the fact is we don't learn quite so much we don't learn at all hardly from books, and we don't really learn so much from things that work out well. We only learn most often from things that work out poorly. Absolutely.
That is the greatest learning tool, failing or things not working out, because the goal is to not keep repeating, where you keep having a life where you're repeating the same patterns over and over. Especially when you're trying to change those patterns, but yet you find,
it's a good consideration.
Yeah. I mean, but yet we keep, there's a habit to that. It's like one of the things that, when people want to lose weight, it's like whatever diet plan you want to be on, whatever exercise program you want to be on, like, what kind of food do you have in your house? So if getting the food out of the house that you have trouble with makes common sense, right? It makes sense. But so many people are like, well, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave the cookies here. I'm going to leave it. Well, at midnight when you're hungry, that whole bag of cookies is going down. Then you're going to be like, oh, I did it again. So getting, not setting yourself up for failure is a key, but also, knowing logical courses of action. If I have a really hard time controlling my weight and I snack on junk food, having an extra large bag of Keebler Elves chocolate covered cookies is not your best best bet.
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
Certainly not on the list of recommended things to do. That's probably not
Exactly. Yeah. Justin has a bag in the cabinet right now. Is the only reason I use that brand. So, but I also know not to touch them because that's not good for me either. But, but
Nutella is
within
another thing I know. But
yeah, but within all of this is, what do you when we're talking about practicing the law of attraction, to our advantage, always surveying where your life is at. I want this, I want this, I want this, I want to bring it back. Ask the question, is anything in my orbit there? Are we here? Is that you need to do inventory. You need to see the people. If you're trying to attract a job, or you're trying, you want to make sure you're looking at that opportunity. It's
also how you can refine it too, because I mean, when you pay attention to the signs, when you pay attention to the messages that are coming to you, the messages are basically mirroring back to you the real essence of what you've been asking for.
Right.
So if it doesn't match with what you thought you were asking for, it's an opportunity to say, well, maybe I need to refine my approach, because this is what I actually attracted. This is what actually came into my life. So what's missing from what I'm asking for? You have to ask those kinds of questions and make the adjustment.
Well, one of the things, for example, when people are trying to increase their financial well-being or get more money, like here's an example. Somebody said, they when you want to manifest something, if you get more money is your goal. Listen, I want more money. That's just I need more money. I want more money. I'm manifesting more money. Well, I know a great case of this guy that was doing that. Well, he went, he got a promotion at work and he got a lot more money. I mean, a really big promotion, really big raise. So he actually manifested what he asked for.
Yeah.
However, he went from being a salesperson within the company who had very flexible hours, where he really didn't need to be in. All he needed to do was call. So and he only got paid on commission,
right?
Which was great commission. But he would, if he needed to take a week off or not go in for a week, it was all up to him. Time was not a factor in his compensation. So then he moves way up the ladder because he was number one salesman, and he did really well as salesman, but this job was even more than that. And plus he was going to get the commission on what everybody else sold. Right. And so this was plus a big stock bonus and all this. So on paper, it looked great, except he's had to go from working maybe 20 hours a week to working some weekends, 70 hours a week. He couldn't. Yeah. It was very stressful. His job wasn't stressful before. So he manifested more money, but he didn't see the signs of what the cost of that money was. Right. He did. So, after a while, him and I were talking, and he's like, I'm going to have to quit. It's just, so, it's hard to go back and say, I want to go back to what I was doing before. But we came up with this idea, and he was such a good salesman, and the company themselves, I knew they wouldn't let him go, even if he wanted to go back to sales. Yeah. So I said, but also, if you want more money, instead of taking that gigantic promotion, why don't you just be more mindful? Instead of working 20 hours a week and making your 110 grand a year, why don't you step it up to 30 hours a week and see if we can't get it up to 150, 160, 170, or somewhere in that range, and make more money, but still keep the essence of what you love about the job. Yeah. Which he ended up doing. He's doing very well with that. He's not taking it for granted. He's getting more money, but he's doing it without the stress. He said, I would have gone. He said, I don't know how executives do it. He said, it's just, he's expected to answer. He's in a group chat with all the big shots at this company. And if the boss is sending out a text at 11 o'clock on Sunday night, you're answering it. And if you don't, you're not in trouble technically, but everybody answers, right. And the politics of being that high up. So he said, I'm much safer down here at that lower level. And he said, I can get close to the money I was making for it by just working a little harder. So sometimes we ask for something, but you don't look at what comes with it. You got to be very, very mindful of what you're seeking. It's more money sounds like a fantastic idea. And a lot of us pursue that for a long time. But then you have to start adjusting that. More money at what cost is a bigger question.
Yeah. That, I know for my own sake, my own situation, that was a big contributor toward where I ended up going over the last 5, 6, 7 years. I really took to heart the teaching of the the business teachers and so forth who talk about the importance of delegating if you're a manager or an owner or in a top position like that. And it's the best decision I could have made. But the point is that I listened to and paid attention to what the universe had been sending me, because what the universe had been sending me was where I was wearing all the hats.
Yes.
Where I was doing all the work. And I was working myself, probably doing really great. I was working myself into the ground.
Yes.
And not getting anywhere, which was even worse.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to do all that, you might as well get the reward. I wasn't even getting the reward.
Yeah,
My
that
reward
makes
was
that's
to be
double
miserable.
worse. That's doubly worse. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So that the point is, I learned and paid attention to what that sign was telling me. The signs were telling me over and over again, you're better off. You're going to have a better life if you find a way to delegate everything.
Yes.
And that's what I've been making it a practice. I actually have a situation going on with one of my employees right now, a very valued employee. I won't go into the details, but bottom line is this employee was all upset because she was concerned that she was going to adversely affect the company with what was going on. And I knew that wasn't the case, but I could understand why she would come to that conclusion. If it hadn't been for the fact that I understood the value of delegating, I would have had a hard time explaining to her why what she was saying, what she was thinking wasn't true, because she had come to the conclusion that I can't possibly help her out with her situation because I have too much going on. I'm running the company. I work too hard, so I can't be doing that. And I said, I don't know how to tell you this. I don't work nearly as hard as you think I do. I delegate like crazy. You would be amazed how light my days are.
Absolutely.
Well, of course I can help out with this. And it was, I think it kind of surprised her. She hadn't really thought that could be a possibility. I don't think most of us think that could be a possibility.
No. But she had a preconceived idea, as well, right, of what's going on. So, but when we're trying to bring anything and looking at the signs either for or against, if it's a really bad idea, one of the things that I was, I've worked with, there's this guy that, I don't know, this has been a few years ago. He was selling some type of computer to businesses. And I wish I knew more. You would know what I'm talking about. But anyway, and he just, it was getting more and more difficult, and people, there were much cheaper options. They were faster. It was hard to keep up with all that was going so much. And the software, he was, it was mainly selling the software that went with it for doctors' offices for practice, right? It was this, very complicated office software for a right, medical professional.
Right.
And what he would do is he would sell them, and then he would sell them the laptops, that all of it was together. Right. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse for him. And it just wasn't good. And he was just stuck on that one concept. I said, look, your competitors, let's look at what your competitors are doing. There's nobody trying to force them to buy laptops from them. First of all, they're selling the software. So you need to step away. Now, if you want to provide laptops, they want you to do that. Certainly be able to do that. But you're stuck on the computers with the hardware already on it versus these other things, which use a lot of virtual work and a lot of cloud technology and stuff that he's not using. And his stuff was pretty outdated. So eventually he wanted to manifest more sales and income, but he was stuck with the same exact strategy and he wouldn't ever adapt. A lot of people get stuck into that. Like, can you imagine being a travel agent in 1998, 99, a lot of people use travel agents, and then, that's, the internet all of a sudden started, you don't need a travel agent. You don't need that. And so all these travel agents, some people just went totally bankrupt because they didn't see the sign on the wall. My dad sold his insurance company before the internet got big. And he probably made 3 times the money he would have made if he would have sold after that, because the value of insurance agencies went way down,
Right.
commissions went way down. The internet changed all of that. So the point is, you got to be you got to be aware what you're trying to manage, but you got to look for the signs of what's not working either. There's sometimes, the old, I'm not going to give up. I don't want you to give up on the dream, but you may have to give up on the method.
Yes. And in fact, that was kind of my story, wasn't it? Because my business died in 2008 with a financial crisis, and I kept trying to resurrect it using the same methods that I had built before. So it's essentially the same story you're talking about. Now I have to give myself some credit because I did recognize that it wasn't working. I didn't keep just pounding away at it. I pounded away at it for about 4 years before I finally woke up. But then after 4 years, I said, this isn't working. I don't understand why it's not working. It should work, but it's not working. I gotta find something else. Now, at that point, I had no clue what the answer was.
Right.
None whatsoever. And as you know, the only solution I could come up with, because we were in such bad financial straits, was to start a podcast, because that was the only thing I could afford to do.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford anything else.
Right.
So I started a podcast. I figured I'll bring on the experts to teach me this stuff. And you were one of the experts I reached out to. You were the 12th episode. So that ultimately became the steps toward finding what my solution was. But my point is, I didn't know what the solution was. I had to pay attention to the fact that the signs were telling me this is not going in the right direction, and then trust. I had to find some way that I could change it, even though I didn't know how to change it. I had to trust that somehow it was going to happen.
Yes, and that's what that's the law that we work with. When you can understand the process will work, but the nuance of being stuck on how it's going to work can ruin the whole process.
Yeah.
And so that's the hardest thing to sort of let go of.
It took me 4 years.
Yeah, well, I mean,
really. If you add in a few years after that, it was actually more than 4 years.
Well, I know me with website development. When I started my business, I didn't have a lot of money to spend. I was shocked at what people were charging for websites. So
No, I know.
I got this guy to do it. It was for $1,000. It was not good at all. I mean, it was very minimum. And then along the way, I have a friend that's like, look, use Wix. It's, I go, I know nothing. He goes, Joel, it's so plug and play. It's the simplest thing in the world. And for a couple $100, I made a great website. You know what I mean? And could have done it. It's as good as I needed to be. But you can do a lot more with it, and for very much cheaper. So that business of building a website, it had to go. I mean, you had something that was so cheap and so easy they could do themselves. They could change the content daily if they needed to. It's just, it was so they didn't need you at all all. And so
and that was the sign. That was
the sign.
Got my attention and said, all right, I can't go this route.
Right.
I could have stayed in the general field, but in order to do that, I would have had to up my game in terms of what kind of programming that I was doing. Basic websites. I need to, if I wanted to stay in, I had to learn the more advanced programming techniques that I didn't really want to learn.
Yes.
That would have been that path.
Right.
So in a sense, I kind of followed what the signs were telling me and matching it to what my own feelings were, what my own expectations were. I realized that wasn't the route for me. I even tried it for a bit. I tried doing programming, and for me, it was like going to the dentist every day.
Yeah.
It just was not fun at all.
No,
Some people, my brother absolutely loves it. My brother is a software developer. He absolutely loves it. That's what he does for NASA. He just has such a good time with it. For me, it's like, oh, please, do I have to do this again?
Yeah, no, that would be torture for me as well.
Yeah. So again, it's about, like you said, it's about, are you going to keep staying stuck in that same place of trying to do the same thing over and over again? It's basically following the precept that the 12-step people say, repeating the same behavior over and over again, expecting a different result is the definition of insanity.
Right. And
it really is. I mean, it's truly an insane thing to do.
Well, yeah, when you keep, I have a friend that is this computer programming guy, and we were talking about something, and I was getting some help. This has been years ago, and I kept pressing the same button with the same result.
Yeah.
And he goes, Joel, you're welcome to keep pressing that button, but if you're expecting it to be different, we got a problem. But the button's not hurting anything. It's just not going to do anything.
No.
It's like, yeah. And, it's like, oh, okay, that's a good point. But when you use the same strategy, when you do part of all of this, it's just understand what are you really trying to get, and not get. And Mike Dooley, before he got into whatever he's into now, was really good about the cursed hows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of the things I used to love about that, you got to get out of your brain that it's got to be this one particular way. And he was one that used to push that straight, get the concept down, and then allow it to happen and be able to see it. He started his entire law of attraction business, which was very lucrative, with off of a mailing list from selling T-shirts he had.
Yeah. And it was a T-shirt business that was dying.
Yeah, dying T-shirt business. But he used that, as he was going through his losing of the business, and he sent out these motivational quotes every day, and that started a newsletter, which led to him writing books and a speaker, and he did really well. I like I said, he's sort of changed direction. The last time I saw him, I haven't really followed him, but and maybe that's working great for him. But understanding that when you get stuck on one course of action, or there's only one, if you want to attract someone, and you can't just be like, I literally have a lady that came to me years ago, law of attraction, and she worked with this guy, and they were in love. They were having an affair. He was married, and she wanted to attract him as a husband.
Yeah.
And I said, it's a little, the law of attraction right now, you can't get that specific. He's married. And he told her, I'm not leaving my wife and kids. My kids are little. I'm not doing that to them. And she just said, what can I do to get him to change his mind? I go, you can't. And I go, yeah, you're wanting to attract or relate. Why don't you look for attracting what he represents, but somebody maybe who's not married with children? And she just could not. She said, no, it's him only. I said, well, you're limiting yourself, and I don't see that working out well for you. But
well, it also raises another question, and it's along the line of what we're talking about, which is, if she had managed somehow to attract him, what's she attracting? She's attracting a guy that could leave her.
Yes.
For another woman.
Yes.
If he did it once, what's going to stop him from doing it again?
Oh, that's. I mean, how many times I've seen that repeat?
I can't imagine. Lots of times, I imagine.
Oh, like I've had multiple friends. One in particular, he meets this lady on a cruise. They both are there with their spouses, and it turns into an affair. He leaves his wife, she leaves, and so they get married. It's going really well. He thinks, I found my love of my life, and then he obviously one day discovers some text messages he's having with another guy, and he literally called and said, do you believe she's cheating on me? And I go, yeah. I do. And
very diplomatic of you.
Yeah. He goes, well, why would you? I said, she literally did that with you. You can just assume that that's going to happen again. I had a lady I was about to hire as a nurse. I may have told you the story before, and she met all the criteria, and I said, okay, when can you start? And she said, oh, I can start tomorrow. And I said, I thought you were working. She said, screw those people. They've been, yeah. She said, I said, oh, I said, well, tell you what, I'm going to rescind our offer right there, because if you will leave them in a lurch, this is a hospital, whether you like it or not, they're understaffed. If you're going to do that to your team, our place is going to be just as stressful. You're going to hate us eventually the same way with that mindset. And she said, no, I'll give them notice. I go, no, it's not the point. It's you minimally should, if you in a next interview, they offer you a job, say, I'm required to give 2 weeks. I will let you know if they want me to serve out the 2 weeks. She could have done that, and I would have never known. Mm-hmm. But when she said, screw them, I can just start tomorrow, I'm not going to go in. I'm like, and we're not doing that. Because you're going to do that to me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an old cliche that I like to refer to that describes this very nicely. It's screw me the first time, shame on you. Screw me the second time, shame on me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that same concept. So when you're looking at what, and that's sort of the thing that comes along with manifesting, and the law of attraction it can just give you what you're asking for. It doesn't have an opinion. It doesn't, well, that's not good for you. It'll give you what you're asking for. It's just what you're feeling you want. It's what you're tuned into. And when you don't think it through, you might get what you want, but I want more money, but I also don't want to work 70 hours a week in a super stressful job where I'll be dead in 2 years. It's not what I want, don't want to go do a dangerous job for a lot. There's a lot of things you got to look at. So you want to manifest with, and look for the signs attached, look for what's there, both warning signs or look what you've already attracted. That's the thing, before you start shopping around, let's look at what you got. Who's right in front of you? What's right in front of you?
Yeah. The ones that the signs are that the signs of the things that are right in front of you aren't. Can you call them even signs?
Yeah.
They're more than signs. They're like, here's the result. It's like the results are in front of you. Not even the signs. The results are right there.
Right there. And that's part of what we got to work toward. Understanding that. I know with so many people when they have this concept of a friend of mine who's not familiar with Florida, he told me a few weeks ago, he said, man, I have found this really good. Did I tell you about the condo he was buying? That was
no.
Yeah. So he said, I found this really good price on a condo south of Daytona Beach. And I go,
south of Daytona?
Yeah. I said, okay. Well, I said, he said, I don't understand. He said, these things are going for $700,000 to $800,000. And this one's on sale for $300,000. And I'm like, okay, well, there's clearly a reason. He said, but I said, well, one thing that's happened to the condo market in Florida is insurance problems. And also there's assessment. So if you need a new seawall and there's 10 condos in the place and you're all paying homeowner fee and the seawall costs $1 million, you're going to have $100,000 assessment that goes on the building. Right.
Yeah. And that's not a small consideration.
And that's exactly when he investigated it. It was $375,000, but the person didn't pay the $290,000 assessment for their pre. So that's not listed in the selling price, by the way.
Yeah.
And then because they had an older roof, the homeowner association fee went up because insurance in the building after the collapse of that one condo on the east coast of Florida.
Yeah.
So the homeowner association fee for that was $1,800 a month. So his little $375,000 condo thought was a great deal would have cost him more. More than the others, and it just. And I said, so you're not looking at the sign. Sometimes the sign, the real estate market, you're not going to find that kind of a buy without being something to it. You know what I mean? There's always something. If you find a house, when I sell my house, I'm going to list it two ways. At some point I'm going to move from this one. I've been here for 12 yeyears, and I'm going to have them list it. I'm going to get all my stuff out. Say I'm not doing a thing to it. Hadn't been updated. I'll sell it for this price. If it doesn't sell, I will do all the necessary repairs and then sell it for that price. So I want to be real clear what I'm doing. I don't want to spend the time managing all the repairs, and it's not disrepair. It just needs to be updated. It needs, all that stuff. And so it's just that's how I'm going to do it. But I'll be very clear that you get this option. If somebody's a handyman or a painter wants to come in, and this will be a steal for them.
Yeah, it's what they call a fixer-upper.
It would be a fixer-upper, and it sell it as is, and our neighborhood houses sell instantly, so it probably will sell anyway. But it's just how it works. It's just look at the signs, look at the sometimes something's good to be true. I'm very much a positive person, but if every condo in the building sold for $1 million, you need to ask the question, why is this one selling for $375,000?
Yeah. And the thing that's always interesting to me, it was astonishing at first, but now it's just interesting, is that anytime I've investigated these oddities like that, they seem like they're such great bargains compared to everything else. When you add everything up, like you were saying, it turns out it's a worse deal.
Yes. Oh yeah. This would have been a far worse deal.
Far worse. Yeah. It's not even close.
Yeah.
to the point where you ask yourself, how could they even list it for $375? I mean,
Yeah.
that's an insane price.
Well, we just simple math. It should have been about 280 to keep it under the million. Right at the million. So it's you see those things, but that's sort of the concept that we're talking about is using the law of attraction and being aware. The law of attraction never fails. It will sometimes, because it doesn't say, are you sure you want that? Are you really sure you want that? It doesn't do that, but there are signs that can help you along the way saying, okay, is this too good to be true? Is this,
there is actually a factor that does tell you that information though. And we don't tend to pay attention to it, but the factor that I like to use for every decision I make is how do I feel about it? And when I say that, I mean, how do I really feel about it? Not how do I want to feel about it.
Right.
But when I look at the situation, how does that situation actually feel? Like if I was, we'll take my own situation from life. Louise left me. She's my ex-wife. I've been through that process. I know what that's like. I'm looking for a new relationship. I meet a woman, and the woman gives me indications that she could do the same thing as Louise. I really like this woman, right? I'm really attracted to her. But I've also learned to ask myself, how do I really feel about her? Because on the surface, we tend to say, well, I really like her. I feel attracted to her. What I'm really saying when I do that is, well, I could be attracted to somebody who's like this person.
Yes.
But when I look at the total feeling of it and remember, well, this is what happened with Louise, I don't want that to happen again. Then I have to admit the feeling that I thought I had really wasn't the feeling. The true feeling was a lower vibrational feeling than the one I thought I was dealing with.
Absolutely.
So it requires a level of self-honesty about what is it you're really feeling, not what you should feel, not what you thought you might feel, but what are you actually feeling about it?
Well, and I love that. And even taking it further, is your feelings being influenced by what people think you should be feeling too? Right. I have that a lot, where when, I ask people, young people coming in, let's say you're 19 and you did 1 year of college, and you're doing terrible. You got out of high school, your parents' expectations are you're going to go to college, there's that. So I'll say, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to get my degree, but what do you really want to go get the degree? Because your energy and effort's not suggesting that's what you really want to do. Mm-hmm. You're a smart guy. So something's not matching. And then when they really get down to it, well, I mean, I really think school's sort of stupid. People's perspective of college has changed a lot over the years. Mm. There's many ways to make money, a lot of money, and different. He goes, well, I have friends that aren't going to college. They're in the trades, or they're doing this. They're making a fortune. He said, I don't know if I really need it. I go, well, then you need to advocate that for yourself. He said, well, my parents, I said, your parents, at the end of the day, I don't know what the response is going to be, but you can ask them and at least be honest with it. Because if you keep saying you want to go to college and but you're hating every second of it there, it's not good for you. It's not, if you want it, go get it. If that's what you really want, we need to work on strategies to step up your game. But you say you want it, and I'm looking at the indications, and it's not matching.
Yes. And that's it right there. Is it matching?
Yes.
Is what you think it is and what it feels deep down to really be, are those two things matching?
Exactly. And that's
most often when there's any kind of a possible bad situation going on, actually 100% of the time, they don't match. They don't match at all.
Yeah. I have a statement that, when you're looking for something, when you're ready to move, when you're ready to change, you change careers or, whatever, you need to really look at all things, not just jumping at the first thing. The idea of, there's a term I use in recovery called geographical cures. There's an old recovery slogan that says, no matter where you go, there you are.
Right.
So if the alcoholic version of you goes to Atlanta, the alcoholic version of you is now in Atlanta. You
Right.
didn't escape the alcoholism. A lot of people think so. When you're trying to look at, I want to bring something. What are the signs? Sometimes the signs are you need to stop doing something too. I mean, there's all kinds of signs always to us, like waking up every day when, one guy comes to me years ago and he's telling me, I wake up every day and I'm just exhausted. And I go, when's your last blood work? I go through all the whole list of everything. And he's like, well, it was done on the 15th or this, and this, that, and that finally, after 45 minutes of the conversation, well, I do have about 6 or 7 beers before I go to bed every night.
6 or 7.
Okay. Well, so maybe I'm just going to be on a limb here, but 6 or 7 beers before bedtime is making you not feel, he said, but it helps me sleep. I go, clearly it's not helping you sleep. It may give the illusion of helping you sleep, but it's not allowing you to get into a deep sleep.
Yeah.
And so but you got to be honest with yourself. You got to look at what you're asking for, and you have to be ready to just be, if you really want it, you can really get it no matter what it is. But you also have to be prepared for what the cost of it is. It's not always as simple as it may seem. And most people, when they're manifesting, they get stuck and they don't look at all that. You need a more, I'm very much about get the general concept to be fine, but you also, you don't want to just say, I want to make a lot of money. I want to make a lot of money with freedom, the ability to be able to travel. I mean, you want to put some stuff in there that just puts you in, or maybe you're young and you don't mind grinding for 10 years so you don't have to work anymore. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's go make a retirement money and retire when you're 35. Let's go do that if you want. That's a strategy. But it's just being aware of what you're bringing, looking for the signs in relationships, friendship, what is available. Here's a simple thing. If you text somebody over, I've worked with a lot of young ladies. If he doesn't text you back, quit texting him.
By the way, the same rule applies to the young men, just saying.
Oh, definitely. But I hear the complaint mostly from the young ladies.
Sure.
He just didn't answer me. He didn't answer me. And it's like, okay, so it says delivered. You have an iPhone. He has an iPhone. It says delivered. So we know he got it and he didn't answer you. That is an answer.
Yeah.
You got to just accept that's not a answer you want.
I think there's another factor too that just occurred to me, and it summarized really nicely in a very, very, very old song dating back to the 60s, maybe the 70s. But the lyric of the song is, if you want it, here it is, come and get it. But you better hurry because it's going fast.
Yes.
If you want it anytime, I can get it, but you better hurry because it may not last.
Yeah.
And that philosophy, it's going fast, it may not last. It's basically the hype philosophy. Oh, buy it right now. You got to have it right now. It may not be here tomorrow. That fear of scarcity. People tend to, I think, buy into that so easily because they fear if they don't get it, they're going to miss out on the thing they really wanted.
Absolutely.
Even if it doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Well, you see that in all aspects of life. And the signs are always there. It's like, not too long, you during the beginning of the pandemic, remember when GameStop stock went crazy and all that stuff happened, and people made a lot of money, then it crashed. People lost a lot of money. It was that. So I don't know, a month or two ago, the guy, I forget the guy's name, but the guy that started it was trying to do it again. So they went on social media. They were trying to pump it up and, get everybody. Now, Wall Street's not going to fall for that again. They caught them. Yeah. Wall Street's aware of what they did last time. They caught them. A lot of people, not to get too technical, but a lot of people had shorted GameStop stock. So when you force it to a certain point, they're required to cover their short. And so that keeps pushing the price up. And so they knew that. And GameStop is a terrible company to invest in. It's horrible financials. But nonetheless, it was just who they picked to go. And they pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. I mean, people made millions of dollars doing it. And then quickly it crashed when the fundamentals of the company came through. So anyway, this started up again. And so I have a couple of clients that said, I'm getting in early this time and I'm going to get in and out. And it's like, this one didn't last a few months. This one lasted like 2 days.
Yeah, right.
And so the only one that got more rich is the guy that started the first time because he got in and out immediately.
Right.
Because he knew of it. So it's like the fear of missing out ignore all the signs. This is a terrible stock. It it is a company that really has no business even being in business financially. It's just,
Right.
They don't do much anymore. So, you got to look for the signs, be able to pay attention to the signs, and not still make the same mistakes. That's what we're shooting for.
Why do you think we are so scarcity oriented? Because that's really what that is. That's a belief in scarcity that it's, you got to take it right now, or else you'll never have as good an opportunity again. And it's never true. I can even safely say it's not that it's usually not true. It's never true. It's never true that there's no opportunity later on.
No, there's always opportunity. And one of the things, I buy cars differently now than I've ever bought. I just, I do it differently. I've learned all this. But years ago, when you walk onto a car dealership, I can get you this deal right now. If you buy this right now, and what always would turn me off back then, they said, well, I'm going to think about it. I'll let you know tomorrow. It might not be here tomorrow. And I go, then it won't be here. It's okay. It isn't like they don't have other Toyota trucks or whatever I was buying at the time, and the idea, if they try to create urgency because they know statistically, if I walk out of that dealership, statistically, I'm not going to buy that truck from them.
Right. Buy it from their competitor, which from their perspective is even worse.
Yes. And so that's their strategy. They want to create that urgency, create the fear of you're going to miss out if you do this, if you don't get this right.
But we don't just limit the scarcity mentality to used car dealers or new car dealers, either one. We apply it in all areas of our lives. People routinely apply it that's why the sales pitches keep working in any kind of field. I don't care what you're selling. They work. So, the basic principles of how you hit a pain point and keep hitting it and say, we've got the solution, but you got to do it right now. Everything sells that way. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So why do we keep falling for that?
Well, because we have I think it's, again, back to the protective nature that we perceive that scarcity mindset brings. So when you can create urgency, and if I don't get it right now, it's going to be worse. And one of the great examples recently is for last year, NVIDIA stock, if you follow that at all, just went crazy. It at one point was more valuable than Microsoft.
Yeah.
More valuable than any. It was the most valuable, like $2 trillion company. It was way up there. And the stock was trading for whatever, $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 a share. Well, they were going in. That's not an attractive price for the average buyer.
Not really.
So they have a thing where they call a stock split. Well, they'll divide it by 50 or whatever. Right. Nothing changes. It's just they take that $1,500 stock and they divide it by 50 or whatever. That nothing changes fundamentally within the company. So leading up to this 50-to-1 split, the stock price kept spiking, and it's like, oh my God, it's going to go crazy when it splits. Well, everybody was rushing to buy it. If you look at the stock since it split, it's down significantly. It's still way up for the year, but from where it was, it's down significantly because there's so many people that jumped in and said, then they drove it too high, so that drives stock. It drives demand. And also when people want to bail, they get out. Warren Buffett always said, I want to buy when they're selling and sell when they're buying, or whatever. I forget his statement, but it basically just makes sure you're not doing what the sheep do, because when the stock market starts falling, everybody panics and say, I want to get what I can. And instead of hanging in there, it's statistic. If you would have, during no crash in my lifetime, has it not come back? I've seen several crashes in my lifetime. 2008, we've had these things, the .com bubble, multiple things crashed, and they've all come back. It never.
We should be clarifying too that the all that you're talking about isn't individual stocks. Stocks can disappear.
No, they're value. I'm talking about the market comes back.
Right.
Yes, it always comes back. So that fear of just constantly selling. I remember, and it goes either way. One of the funniest things I remember, the .com bubble era, and I was following it pretty closely, just observing. I didn't have any money to invest. But there's an old record company called KTEL.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So KTEL what they would do is they would get artists that sound like the artist to record songs, and they would sell these albums for a lot cheaper. It was like I call it, it's definitely a 1970 kind of company, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so so this is the most boring company in the world. So in 1999 or 2000, when the .com bubble was exploding, this sad little stock, KTEL, it was trading for like $2 a share. They changed their brand. They called themselves KTEL.com. Their stock went up to $70.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
KTEL went up from 2 to 70?
Yeah, for no reason other than they were, and there were so many there's stocks that were going up, fivefold in a day because they reported we had an increase of 1,000% on traffic. Mm-hmm. No profitability. Nobody was profitable at the time.
Right.
But they were just looking. It was such a frenzy, and so of course KTEL, that didn't last any time, and they're totally gone now. But it was this idea. It was irrational. The stock market gains of 48% a week. It was just irrational.
Yeah.
Irrational. But yet everybody was piling on. People made a lot of money, and a lot of people lost them because they wait around, said, screw it, I'm going to get into it. And then they get into it, they bought at the peak, and they're done.
Right. Yep. So that fear mentality, that scarcity mentality is really the most important thing to work on ahead of everything else. Because if we can leave that behind, we're going to be less susceptible the next time that a sign comes from the universe. Absolutely.
And that's the, when you get focused and not listening to all that noise or, other stuff, and just really get in tune with what you want and look for, I do it. Everything I've ever wanted, I have right now. And I remind myself on a daily basis of that. I have everything I ever wanted. There's really nothing left I want. I have an abundance, and I can get whatever I want. I like that. Mm-hmm. But if I want something, I need to make sure. Okay, what is that? What is that coming from? And there's nothing wrong with wanting something.
No,
but I want to make sure that I'm understanding what's that coming from, and do I already have it in some form or fashion?
Which makes what I think is the final point, which is it isn't just paying attention to how you feel about whatever it is you're evaluating, but it's also, in my mind, it's paying attention to how you felt before you started thinking about how you feel.
Exactly.
Where you started from.
Yes.
Like any time that I'm starting from a place of being angry or frustrated or bitter or whatever, and trying to figure something out, I've learned, it took a long time, but I've learned to say, no, now's not the time to try to manifest something.
Right.
Now it's not the time to try to dream on something. This is good. Anything I dream on in this particular time, at this particular place, and in this particular vibration, anything I try to dream on is going to come out horribly wrong.
When you were going through the difficult time of your breakup with Louise,
right?
We spoke when that happened, and one of the focuses, let's work on healing. Let's work on you. Let's work on you. Let's not be trying to manifest a bunch of stuff from this mindset. Let's not. Go out to the bars looking for other women. Let's not do all that. But a lot of people do. It seems, but let's get this fixed, because the state of mind you were in at that point, if you were trying to seek someone
that would
else,
have been a disaster.
You would have attracted an absolute nightmare of a situation.
Yes. And that doesn't mean, I was certainly trying to work on getting myself to the point where I could attract somebody.
Sure.
But I also had to be cognizant of where I was at.
Yeah. Well, that's why, there's a football analogy and a love analogy. But I'll use the football analogy. Football, you know what that is? Well, football.
Well, we're going to do that one now?
Yeah, okay. So, you never want to be, you get a famous coach like Don Shula. Best.
I actually know who he is. I think you probably knew that.
Yeah, I stuck with the one you know. Legendary coach. So,
personally, I like Mike McDaniel, but that's another story.
Okay. So Don Shula leaves, and who was the coach after Don Shula?
Oh, it was Jimmy Johnson, wasn't it?
No, that was Dallas. You're thinking of Dallas. No, Don Shula was Miami.
Johnson coached the Dolphins.
He coached. Jimmy Johnson's coached much later for the Dolphins after he was at Dallas.
Right after. I don't remember who it was right after.
Exactly. I don't either.
Oh, okay.
You never want to be the coach after the legend.
This is true.
Yeah. Who coached after Bear Bryant retired at Alabama?
I have no idea.
You will never know that name because it didn't last but a year. I don't know that name. Steve Spurrier is my alma mater at Florida. When he retired, there's a random guy. I see his face, but he was just this random guy that got the job. He was the in-between guy. Then after that guy, Urban Meyer comes along and wins the national championship. But you don't want to be that guy after. You know what I mean? Because your mindset's wrong. That's a really important thing. Your mindset matters. So when you following the legend, you don't want that dip. There's that concept. You see that in relationships. Somebody gets out of that rebound relationship. The person you date after you get out of a long-term relationship is very seldom works.
Oh, sure.
Very seldom. Statistically, it's really, it's amazing how that doesn't work.
Yeah, it's very consistent. Very consistent. And for good reason.
Yes.
Not the least of which is you're still probably hurting from the ending of the old relationship.
Yeah. You're not giving this one a fair chance. And then, as time goes on, second marriages are most often far better than first marriages because you're hoping to do that. But the concept that we get in these patterns of behavior, and like you said, fear of missing out, or I got to rush to something, or I'm ignoring the signs. Those are the things that gets us in trouble, or ignore, or makes us miss out on incredible things because so much is right in front of you. Whatever you want is in your orbit, just tuning into it, seeing it. And most people don't understand that.
And I think it is something that takes practice.
Yes. It does.
First, you have to be aware that those times are not the time to do it. Theoretically, you have to be aware of it. And then you actually have to deal with it the next time you're experiencing something like that. And you kind of have to make some mistakes a few times and realize, oh yeah, that really doesn't work out very well when I'm trying to do something when I'm in that really bad state. But the point is you can learn it.
Absolutely.
You just have to keep taking the steps and making the mistakes and getting back up again, make some more mistakes, fall down, get back up again until finally, whatever your limit is, everybody has a certain limit as to how far they have to go before they learn from it. You reach your limit and you say, okay,
absolutely.
I'm learning, I'm changing, I'm going to change my behavior, and then things get better.
That's how it works. Exactly.
Yeah. So good conversation today. And I just wanted to thank you for putting the sign up because the sign is what gave me the idea of doing the show about the signs today.
Hey, no problem. I love the signs. And I would love to tell you that I'm really good at never ignoring the signs, but I'm not either.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're working toward it.
Yeah. Now my stuff isn't damaging usually, but it's something that I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't think about that,
Mm-hmm.
And it's
you got the damaging stuff done years ago. So
I got that way out of the way years ago. So anything right now, there's not that much at stake, but it's this idea that I'm fascinated by signs and signals, and it's you want to. There's times I go, oh, wait a minute, maybe that's what that was. I look back and I can see multiple opportunities that I didn't even realize were there at the time.
I brought out that song from the 60s. I'm going to bring out another one to close it up. Now, the lyric that I'm about to cite had a completely different meaning from what we're talking about, but I'm going to kind of repurpose it for this. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
Right?
We were pulling out the classics today. I forgot about that.
We certainly are.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Great to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.